Good evening, friends and family. Please enjoy this unedited paramotor flight. Although I make a few comments, I probably made 3 comments the whole flight. Don't feel like you need to listen to the audio. I don't think you'll miss anything. There are a couple of wildlife surprises in there, so do look out for them. I'll have more comments at the end of the video. I'll see you then.
Look at that. I don't think you're getting full power there, Bob. That does not sound like full power. All right.
All right, I have a few statistics about the flight. I traveled a total of 9.6 miles. The highest that I got was 550 feet, and my average speed was 20 miles an hour. This is as slow as I can fly. The entire flight, I had my trims pulled all the way in, which causes the angle of attack to point slightly up, and it has the slowest airspeed, and also it's the most docile that the aircraft handles. It's good practice because sometimes I'll fly faster with the trims let out, and that causes the wing to pitch forward slightly, which prevents a smaller profile into the wind, which causes less drag. And in that configuration, it handles a little bit differently. The brake pull gives you different results, but it's good. It's, at least for me, it's good practice to do both trims in, which is slow, and trims out, which is fast. You'll notice that I got close to the ground a number of times there, and as you get good at landing, you feel like you understand how the wing behaves when you're close to the ground. One of the aspects of flight in general is the idea of energy conservation, which basically means that as you build up energy or speed while you're flying, you can use that speed in order to do various things. One of which is in a paramotor, you can pull your brakes, and that always increases your altitude, trading some of your forward speed into vertical altitude. And that's when you pull both brakes simultaneously. But that's a fleeting change. You can only do that so much because you didn't add any energy into the system. You have to power up in order to add energy into the system. And I'm telling you this because that's what happens when you land. So as you get close to the ground, you pull the brakes, and that either, depending on how fast you pull the brakes, that levels you out as you land, or if you pull the brakes too quickly, you'll actually swoop up and then come down this way. And that's actually a technique that people use to do what they call spot landing, where you're trying to just touch down without taking a step on a very specific spot. So you kind of swoop up and then boop, you just set right back down. But while you're flying close to the ground, you can use this to your advantage, especially me, and I'm newer, and also I have a throttle that I'm having a hard time dialing in exactly, doing fine adjustments. Part of that is my lack of skill. Part of that is my throttle. My throttle only goes about this far into my fingers, and I just installed a new one, which has a longer stick on it and also a longer throw. So I'm hoping that the different throttle will give me a little more fine-tuned control, but also a big part of it is just my lack of experience. I'll give it too much gas, or I'll give it not enough, and you'll hear I'm kind of playing with it a little bit, trying to find the right setting. And so I just need to do that a little more. But what's important is you give it enough extra throttle before you need it. And so this is especially true with a paramotor because the wing is up here and I'm down here, and as you throttle forward more, you pitch up and you pitch down like this. And so let's say you're flying. I'll use the bottom of the frame here as a reference. So let's say I'm flying along nice and steady, and then I just let off the gas. Well, that's going to pitch me forward like this, because I'm no longer pitching myself up, and then I swing back like this, and that points you towards the ground. So being good at small adjustments on your throttle prevents you from, say, flying nice and steady, and then you let off, and then now you're pointed to the ground. There's a point of no return where if you're pointed to the ground, no amount of throttle will save you from hitting the ground. And in fact, in that scenario, throttle will just thrust you into the ground faster, because I can do this like super, like there's no way this would happen with me right this moment. But let's say I'm pointed this much towards the ground. No amount of throttle will pull you out of that. You have to pull brakes to lift yourself up like this. And so as you're flying along, let's say I reduce somewhat throttle, I'll start coming down like this, but I have a little bit of energy in my brakes that I can lift myself up and then add more throttle. And so that's how I'm able to stay just above the ground, even while I'm kind of messing with the throttle, because I have that forward momentum that I can always use by pulling brakes, which lifts you up. And also what happens is if you give too much gas, you'll pitch up like this. And I did that a few times to get up over the trees. One of the situations you can get yourself into is pitching up and then letting off the throttle, which swings you back, and then throttling up again, and you got this pitch oscillation. It's very important not to get into those pitch oscillations when you're close to the ground. You want nice, smooth throttle movements. And so even though sometimes I'll let off the throttle and I start getting close to the ground, I'll just give it just a little bit more throttle and then wait a little bit and see what happens, and kind of play with that. And then, of course, once again, if let's say I start drifting towards, I just pull a little bit of brake, give it a little bit of gas, let off the brake, and then level out. And I did that a number of times. So as you get used to landing, flying close to the ground is just landing, but not quite. And even if on a day like today, when there's absolutely no wind, you'll see that when I was flying close to the ground, I could just land straight ahead if there's any problems. And the concept of flying upwind or downwind on a no-wind day just doesn't really exist. So it's fine to just fly on the ground, don't bank too much, and you're pretty much good to go. One thing that was not shown was a successful practice launch, which is another way of calling a launch that I decided not to take into the air. And this morning this happened because I lined up perpendicular to the wind direction. There was a little bit of wind, just little fluttering gusts, and it was enough that I was not able to fully control the wing before taking off, and so my wing just kind of drifted off to one side. I didn't correct appropriately, and I called it off, and then I reset my wing up. Also in the air with me today was Bob, and he flies a trike, and he had the yellow and green wing that you saw. And I think that's about it for interesting stuff. I can talk about the fog. So one of the cool things about Florida in this area is that some of the low areas of Florida, in between trees and whatnot, kind of develops this wispy, misty fog, and it's kind of neat because you can fly tracks through it and then look back and see those tracks. And so if you saw the fog and it looked like it had been separated, either I or Bob had flown through it, and that's why that path was created. So some statistics about my progress thus far. I'm able to know my motor time because my motor keeps track of how long it's been on. I've used it for about 12 hours, and most of that's flying, some of it's standing around on the ground. I do keep a logbook. My totals currently are 34 full stops and 56 total landings. The difference would be touch and goes where I don't come to a full stop. I think I've flown a total of 19 days, so it's been exactly 1 month to today, and Of those 30 days, I've flown 19 of them, and the other stats apply. And that's all I have for you today. I guess a point of note, I never did get my 17 launches, rather 17 touch and goes video to show. So some of that video was pretty cool, and the guy that was taking it was standing right next to me, so you kind of got to see me swoop by and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a hold of that video, so I'm not able to upload that content. And also, after making the video of some random stuff that was going on, I didn't feel like it was enough to really just make a video, so I decided to pass on that. All right, we'll see you next time.